want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
The chance of your being hurt by an atomic bomb is slight. You
Got
must
that?
know how to protect yourself.
Where are you?
Where are you, useless child?
Four exits are here. And here, and here. The oxygen, your oxygen thingy comes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Built Different, the people of Tai Chi, where we follow the energy to find out what makes some people put in the work that others don't even know exists. Please take a moment right now to show your appreciation for our guests' time and courage by hitting like and subscribe, follow, notify, remind me, I pledge eternal loyalty, or whatever your preferred platform offers.
Okay, hi, I'm Jason from Atomic Tai Chi, and this is Built Different, the people of Taijiquan. With me this week are my guests, Chris Marshall and Jeff Turner. For some reason, I want to call you Jeff Taylor for some reason. That was kind of weird. But
It happens.
It happens. So as usual, I'll talk about where I know you guys from. Chris Marshall, an inspiring Tai Chi practitioner who has been out in Seattle, just doing it for really publicly for about 5 years. I mean, I know your martial arts career has been going on for a lot longer than that, but as far as for like making videos and trying to make a name for Tai Chi, it noticed in like the last 5 years or so. And real funny, like we met at the Tampa Bay Martial Arts group retreat. Seen you out there twice. And you went once in between that I didn't go to, whatever. But and you went one time before that, right? And I was there and I had a video and I posted it to Reddit and somebody's like, "Hey, is that Shoreline in the background?" I'm like, I don't know.
Inescapable.
I'm like,
If you
were
go
you in
anywhere,
Tampa?
you're at risk of running into me.
Right. like this dude's everywhere, man. So yeah, that was and then so oh yeah, I definitely got to get back next time. And 'cause I think I remember seeing that shirt across the way. I'm like, wait a second, I think that's the Shoreline shirt. But well, no, and do you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
I mean, you covered it well. Chris Marshall, Shoreline Tai Chi. What is there to say? Everybody in Tai Chi knows who I am at this point, for better and worse.
Yeah.
And as as Jeff said, maybe before we started recording, there's now a significant amount of biography available on me for those who wish to indulge. So I won't waste this hour recapping that.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you, sir. And which brings me to our I'd say a novice or inexpert. I don't know. There's got to be a word for it other than like dummy is what we said last week, but that's not really. It's not a. This man is anything but a dummy. It's my good friend Jeff. Jeff Turner. I met Jeff when I was learning how to teach classes for SUN Microsystems, and he was delivering a class on performance tuning.
management. Yeah.
Yeah, performance management that he had written for SUN. So, and then I kept bugging him after that, and he kept answering my messages. So, here we are 20-something years later or something. I don't know. When was that? That was, yeah, God damn.
It was a long time. It was, I reckon it must have been 95.
No, not quite. It was, it was just before, it was like 2000 and 2001, actually. Because,
okay.
yeah, I remember we talked about 9/11 right after that happened.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you know, because I was in another training class for that. And,
yeah, well, we lost 3 years because of COVID, so my counting's quite out now.
Time, what is time anyhow? You know?
You were a great student because you were interested. Yeah. And that's a good thing, was something that any trainer or instructor or teacher loves about people. If you're interested, then we'll give you the time. It's as simple as that.
Outstanding. But wait, I'm not done singing your praises yet. But no, I guess like what you were doing the IT, you had your own, you were writing your own books and delivering your own course content for SUN and others, I suppose. And then you retired, started acting, and started making music, started traveling all over the place and just doing whatever the heck you wanted, you know, and not letting anybody, I don't know if anybody told you no. They're like, oh, hey, have fun, Jeff. But you know, I just you just went out and started doing what you wanted to do. And I just think that's just great, you know, to go out and do that. That's kind of one of the reasons I like thought you'd be a good match with Chris here, obviously after you see his bio. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
Just that I think anybody who's interested in bettering themselves in any way, and as a trainer, an IT trainer, one of the things that I think you picked up on was I was really interested in the things that I was teaching. And that's something that I've done for pretty much all of my life. If I enjoy something, I want to do it more.
Yeah.
And I like challenges. I like learning new things. So making the transition when I retired to just challenging myself in a whole variety of ways got me into acting, got me into voiceover. The one about music is actually a strange story. Maybe we'll come back to that one later. But yes, I do have Spotify followers. Yeah.
Hey.
But I think it's just a question of you've always got to be open to things. You've always got to be willing to learn more. And you can meet somebody that can change your life and send you off in a totally different direction. So now I'm trying to create my own TV and film. And in about, funnily enough, in 9 hours time, I will be filming a horror film in my house.
All right. Oh, all right. I've done that. We called a wedding video. No, just kidding. No. Well, that's fantastic. And that's like, you know, a really smart guy. You know, Chris, you're another really smart guy. I'm actually like, man, I'm not the smartest guy in the room right now, and that's awesome. So I'm glad you guys are here. And that really actually, you know, what you were saying actually leads into really what I wanted to talk about. You know, well, a couple things. I'll start with the one, the strengthening yourself, right? Improving yourself, right? You know the general's mandate, don't you, Chris? Like the
song?
Yeah, the song.
Yeah.
And like the lyrics to it being like in Chinese, like a man must strengthen himself without interruption is the general's mandate. So I guess let's talk about that. Why do you do you know, you talk about your bio, but like why do you do it other than like you all was in school and I hung out with the Kung Fu kids and just kept doing it because it was working? You know?
Yeah, right. Well, you know, the easiest thing to do today is the same thing I did yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm not the first one to observe that. I'm sure that goes way back before Plato, and we can just observe that if we can simply do the work to establish good habits, then we can rest on the foundation that we have built for ourselves. So Tai Chi is an opportunity to engage physically and intellectually and socially. And we all need those things in some way or another. And so when I am practicing Tai Chi as a practitioner and a student and a teacher, I am forced to do those things even on days when I might be inclined to do otherwise. So that's really good for me.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think it's good for everybody else as well, of course.
yeah, it's definitely. And actually, that's a good time to come back on that one thing you were saying there, Jeff. That I cut you off so rudely before the intro. But you were saying, what were you saying about Tai Chi?
Well, I'd always assumed that Tai Chi was just people kind of moving around, doing stances. It was a form of kind of easy, gentle exercise. I understood that there was an element of mental control, but it was so subliminal that it kind of passed me by. And I'd never practiced it. I know very little about Tai Chi. And then I saw Chris's video, or one of his videos on YouTube, and it suddenly struck me, A, it is a martial art. It has all of the essence of martial arts, but not necessarily the brute force and destruction that you would assume you would have with martial art. It's a much more gentle and deliberate kind of focus. And I actually picked up on that. I thought, oh, do you know what? There are some Tai Chi classes running near me. Maybe I should go and visit them and see what it's all about.
All right, the videos are working exactly as I intended then. That's great.
Exactly. That's the point. That's like why I started, posting like, push hands videos of my crappy push hands. Like, okay, well, what is it? So people can see, oh wait, this is what Tai Chi is, and like you like have that kind of realization that there's more to it than just old people in the park. Like I looked at something that's been really bugging me lately, in general, has just been like, I don't know if it's in the UK or just in the US, but the life expectancy of men in their 40s and 50s out here is not great, and I think a lot of us are just lonely and a little bit lost, maybe, for various reasons we could, expound on. And I found that for me, at least, even when I had no other kind of like community or anything going on, I had the Tai Chi community to go out and at least, annoy the hell out of them, and that's been a real lifesaver for me, like in a lot of ways, and so that's another reason I want to try and, that I'm doing this to bring more awareness to this. Like, hey guys, if you're out there, you're bored, there's these guys who'll be glad to throw you around if you can find them, and do some stuff. So, but I mentioned before I got started back in it again after my knee injury because of my wife was pregnant with our second daughter, and I'm like, oh, I want to meet my grandkids. So, but then I discovered people that there's fun to it, Oh yeah, talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. You had that open mat this weekend.
Yes, actually, 2 days ago. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm thrilled at how many people showed up on a weekday evening to a suburb of Seattle to get thrown around for 2 hours. That was really great. Everybody had a wonderful time.
It looked great. It was like a King of the Hill sort of. It looked like single elimination.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We play that variation for a couple different reasons. One is that people really do want to watch it, and they enjoy watching it in person as much as they do participating sometimes. Also, if people are really going at it for even 60 seconds, they do need a rest break. So standing in line is nice for that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was really well, you can see how like in push hands meetups, I have no idea where these people are from. It's just open mat, so anybody can come in there. So it's not necessarily your students, right?
Oh,
But
yeah, no, most of them were not my students.
okay, well, yeah. And so the sort of the game aspect of the practice where they realize, hey, I can do this and it's going to win, 90% of the time, right? And then I'm going to hit somebody who actually knows how to do Tai Chi, and all of a sudden this doesn't work anymore. It's kind of what it seemed like in some of those cases. And I think that's great. I hope that, I mean, I think would you say that's probably one of the reasons to do this sort of thing?
This being an open mat?
Oh yeah, I would just say as a practitioner to show up and just do that, to look at what, when you show up, are you just trying to like, beat people, or what are you doing?
Oh, yeah, it's both very intelligent question, and also an insane and frustrating question, because you're really asking, well, why should Tai Chi practitioners practice Tai Chi? Shouldn't we be doing something else instead? And, you know, in most schools, you will be doing something else other than practicing Tai Chi during Tai Chi practice time. So that's why I find the question infuriating, but not from you in particular, because people do have this understanding, and the reason I make these videos is to correct it. So, you know, this is simply a style of practice, and open mat is a style on that style. And we need to become, if we want to reach an expert level in Tai Chi, which we don't need to do, but if we wish to do that, or even just to advance our level, then we need a variety of stimulus from a variety of backgrounds and skill sets, and a variety of intensities. So when you come to something like an open mat, you have the opportunity to practice with people who, for example, have been working on their takedown 3 times a week for 10 years. And maybe they've been doing a different version of it that isn't allowed in open mat, but nevertheless, they are coming with a very interesting skill set that you won't be exposed to otherwise. Because you're going to be surrounded by Tai Chi people doing what Tai Chi tends to be good at, best case.
Yeah.
Right? So it is really kind of the best you can do in Tai Chi, short of going to a no holds barred tournament, which, as you may understand, 40 and 50-year-olds generally do not wish to do.
Not so much.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'll pass on that, but I'm okay. Well, and then it's Jeff, have you ever done any sort of like pickup sports or anything like that?
No.
No, okay.
I play darts, I play pool, I walk, I cycle, and that's pretty much my sporting prowess.
Yeah.
And it's strange. I am actually interested in Tai Chi now because I think it's something that you can do to a level that you're happy with. I mean, I had problems with my knee. I've actually had a knee operation done a few years ago. Now that I'm back and being more active, I want to be involved in keeping myself active and trying to find something that I can do as and when I have availability. Yeah, it's an interesting area to go into. And I think it's one of those things where, yeah, you can choose, I'm just going to do the moving around. I'm going to keep myself supple. But if I wanted to, I could take it that little bit further. And that's the thing I was referring to earlier, where I didn't know how far you could go with it. So it looks as though it would be very good. I mean, I'm 70, so I'm
Oh, wow.
way past 40 now. So I want to be slow. I don't want to be thrown to the floor because it would take me about 10 minutes to get back up. But it looks fun, and it's something where I think there is. I actually watched a couple of other videos, and the precision of people in competition was so strong that I thought, "Do you know what? It probably wouldn't go wrong, hopefully." And maybe that's where the people organizing the competition come in. You know, they're going to be watching, oh, stop, that's wrong, not allowed, or whatever.
I think generally the folks that show up at the tournaments have done at least enough that they know how to fall right. And I think, at least in this limited context, you know, because the problems where I've seen like in push hands where there've been problems have just been people falling and like landing on their wrist wrong and breaking their wrist or something, you know.
Yeah.
Or when my knee was going out on me and I kept like, ah! But that was my own fault for having no ACL and trying to do push hands. But but that's kind of brings up something else too, that when we talk about like the goals here, because you know as you were saying in the other video, you reach a certain point in time where you've got to just start focusing more time on your kung fu if you're going to go take any further, you know, to get that nudge further, as Jeff just put it, that little bit further. That's always like, oh wait, hold on a second, there's another ladder rung there. As soon as you get to it, you know, it just seems to keep going and going. But that, you know, that your reasons for teaching, Chris, might not be the same as your students' reasons for coming into the class. And I know that's something, how do you reconcile that?
Sure. Well, it would be impossible for them to be coming for the same reasons that I am. But, you know, teaching Tai Chi in the 21st century, it's always a negotiation between what the teacher's perception of what Tai Chi is and what the student wants Tai Chi to be. And you know, let's just imagine that we are back in 2018 before I've put out any videos. Other people have put out videos, but I have put out more than anybody, showing a range of practice. So when people come to a Tai Chi class, what is their perception of what Tai Chi is? It's exactly as Jeff has said. It is, generally speaking, people flowing around and you know, if I'm speaking frankly, that's not Tai Chi. A version of that is a piece of Tai Chi, we can say that. But that, even that piece is contextualized by things such as I have shown in the, let's say, more intense videos that I have published. So I've already gone off on a bit of a tangent here, and maybe I forgot your question even. How do we negotiate the difference between where I'm coming from and where the student's coming from? Well, yeah, I mean, you know, the class curriculum is a type of proposal that I make available in advance, and the videos are helping to describe that. And, you know, someone walks into the classroom and they're already making some sort of implicit counter proposal. Well, I wish Tai Chi was this other thing. And I say, well, I mean, you don't know Tai Chi. You can't define what Tai Chi is, but maybe I could meet you 30% of the way. Maybe I can meet you 40% of the way. Maybe I can have 4 different classes which are all focused on different elements of it. And maybe you can choose the 2 that interest you most. Things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's actually something there too. Like, how do you, because I know like my teacher, Alex Dong, I'll mention the name, I guess, to plug him there. What he's done has you know, there's a long form, right? So depending on how you count, it's like 87, 108, 150 postures, whatever, right? You know, basically you do the whole movement, a series of what we would consider movements, and then that's a posture. So depends on how they slice that up, right?
Yeah.
So what the Yang long form, I guess takes about 20 minutes to do appropriately according to that. And so it's in 3 sections. There's a short section, then one about like twice as long as the short section, and there's one that's as long as both those 2 put together, generally speaking, right? So that's the basic format of the form. And so there's been shortened versions of the form that people have done for various reasons, and my teacher decided he's going to do one for his family style. And so he made this like simplified form. And the reason he did it mainly was like, if you got a student learning the form, right, and they're trying to learn something to get something complete, but they don't you know, they work on it for like I don't know, 6 months or so, and they're starting to get, and they get up to the kick section, or they get a second section, whatever. They get up to the part right before the kicks are at. They're like, oh wow, this is really, this is great. How much longer is it? And they're like, well, you're about halfway there, you know. And then they start struggling with the kicks because they haven't ever tried to stand on one leg and turn around, you know. And then so then they get frustrated and they quit, and you know, blah 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 blah. So he kind of chopped it off before the kicks and kind of formalized that and said, okay, this is the simplified form, or form 1. And then with the kicks is form 2. So then they can say, okay, well, you've got form 1, so you don't have to worry about completing it. You've completed that, and you've got something complete, you know, versus trying to do the whole thing and then have something complete. So I guess you have that sort of like psychological feeling of having completed something. You know what I mean? And I guess I bring that whole thing up because of, you know, as we're saying, like how to get the core important lessons into people's heads and bodies.
But that's exactly the same as happens in IT. I mean,
yeah.
I used to get really frustrated when I was teaching IT to people. They just wanted, how do we do this? And I was saying to them, well, if I tell you how to do it in this particular circumstance, you have to have exactly the same circumstance every time you come up against it. But if I teach you the principles of it and you understand the principles, then whatever the circumstances are, you should be able to determine what action should be taken. And I can see that being exactly the same with you, that yeah, learning some of the basic skills and the basic moves, it takes time. It's like, oh my God, it's so boring. And let's face it, we live in a very fast-paced world nowadays. People are always looking on mobile phones or tablets for the next best thing. It seems that people don't realize going kind of slow and just taking it easy and building something that's very firm and concrete helps you when you get to the more advanced things, because you can do everything at the underlying level. It's a little bit like you drive somewhere in a car, you're going at 80 miles an hour, you see interesting things passing you by. You walk there, you'll see a lot more and you'll
Hmm.
actually understand a lot more about it. So yeah, you've got to take time. And I think for me as a teaching person, I applaud you for actually trying to teach people to do those things. But I can understand your frustration when somebody walks in and says, I want to learn Tai Chi, but I've only got half an hour. Yeah.
So yeah, how do you negotiate that? Like getting principles. I mean, how do you structure your classes? I mean, if you mind me asking that, like as far as like getting Tai Chi principles in people, or learning choreography, or doing push hands exercises, or like how do you do that usually?
Sure. You
Yeah.
know, as you ask these questions, I'm just thinking about how much I want to say in public and how much I want to say on a live stream. Okay.
We can turn the live stream off.
Uh,
Really-
One of the things, frankly, that I want to see the Tai Chi community get away from is talking about principles.
Yeah.
Honestly, really, because um, Tai Chi is not a set of ideas that you believe in and recite. And you can't get around that fact by saying, oh, they're not ideas, they're principles. No, actually, you're just kind of exercising a cultural imperative and projecting it out onto an Orientalist fantasy.
Ooh.
Not everybody who says principles is doing this, okay, but we got to be honest, a lot of them are doing exactly this.
Sure, I'll
And
agree with you.
so, you know, coincidentally, I came from a Kung Fu background, so it's very easy for me to conceptualize Tai Chi as Kung Fu, and I'm just going to translate that myself as a set of skills. It's a set of skills, not a set of beliefs. And we can say you know Tai Chi not when you can recite words about it, but when you can do the skills.
Hmm.
And so my class is structured all around performance of skills and demonstration of skills. And people know that they are making progress because as we go through the form, the long form or a short form as the context, they are manifesting the skills that have been demonstrated.
So how do you
That's one of the reasons why my students, those of whom are interested in competition or just friendly interactions and push hands, they do very well, and people are shocked how well they do after a very short time of study.
Yeah, that's good. And I agree with you there too. When we talk about like getting the principle in the body, like
Right.
I guess what they and that's what I mean, like, because people, they get it in their head and they think they got it and they think Tai Chi is something you do, you
Right.
know, and it's more like it's something you become. So, once you've got it in your body and you kind of express it through your motion, okay, then you can actually do something with it, right? As the idea. So but yeah, totally, that they get like, they learn a word or something, and anyhow, I don't want to talk bad about people or anything. It's I mean, everybody goes, it's part of the journey, right? We don't know until we know, and we think we know until we know we don't know, right?
That's right. You know, there was a very famous Kung Fu practitioner by the name of Wang Shenlong.
Yeah.
And one of his signature sayings was, I learned Kung Fu. I'm a Kung Fu man. Whatever I do is therefore Kung Fu. And he's
Yeah.
really representing a popular viewpoint in Kung Fu, which should be considered and respected.
Yeah.
Whatever I do, whatever I want to do, I've built up the foundation. It's valid. I can break every single principle that you think you know, but I can do it well because I've put the hours in and I know how to break the rules in a way that is still following the other rules.
Yeah. Mastery.
I can
Yeah,
understand that.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, can you speak to mastery, Jeff?
Well, no, I actually think that that's a valid point because it's, I mean, taking aside the philosophical part of any kind of Oriental teachings, most teachings are about the way that you apply yourself in your life. It could be, how you live. It could be what you eat. It could be, how you walk to work. It's something that you do. And yes, there's a philosophy behind it. And I think sometimes people might get caught up more in, oh, what's it going to teach me mentally? Whereas martial arts is about physical movement. It's about control. It is about mental kind of focus and being calm with yourself and controlled. So yeah, there is a degree of personal philosophy there, but the spiritual philosophy side of it, yeah, I think you can leave that out. And to go back to what Chris said about, yeah, I am Kung Fu, therefore whatever I do is Kung Fu. I actually applaud that because as a personal stance, I do what I enjoy doing. And people look on me and say, "Oh, you're such a positive person, and how did you learn to be this way?" And it's like, this is just what I do. And if you can be better as a person by doing something, then you're a better person. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Be better, improve yourself. And people like they look at like Tai Chi a lot of times, and especially like people that aren't out to fight, right? And they're like, well, and they just say that it's worthless, right? That it's not because you're not out there like beating people up or whatever. And I can't necessarily agree with that because of how much I get out of it. Like when I started doing Tai Chi, like I could not reach my knees. I was in my 20s, I think. Yeah, I must have been in my 20s at some point. But I know I was in my 20s at some point, but I was in my 20s when I started doing Tai Chi, I guess, I don't know, 20 something. But I had gotten my I jumped off a stage and at a Kid Rock concert, drunk as hell in Frankfurt, and my kidney, basically my rib I had this rib that would float like it goes like that and would go boop 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 and pop, and so that thing bent back and it stabbed my kidney and moved it out of place, right? In Frankfurt, Germany. And so I got in the back of my Volkswagen and my drunk friend drove us to the university hospital. And, the guy's like, "Oh, you okay?" I'd explain in German, I guess. I think I was speaking German, what happened. He asked for a urine sample. And I'm like, okay. And I gave him like basically a little cup of tomato juice, and he's like, oh dear. Anyhow, so, I had this like 20-inch gash through all my musculature on the side. Right. And so like every time I cough, it would like, kind of bulge out like a herniated disc or something like
Yeah.
that. And so when I first started doing this in my 20s, I could not reach my knees, literally. I couldn't reach past them. Now, I can like, bend over and punch the ground as hard as I wanted to if I wanted to break my fist. But it just, it's that slow, and like you were saying, like the slow gradual process. It's like, this stuff especially is like, a page a day, not like a chapter at a time. And so you get that gradual progress over time, and now, it adds up. And the point being, it's good. It's good for you. Do Tai Chi. But no, even if you like the first part of it is like strengthening yourself, and that's kind of like when when you say kung fu, the way I look at it is like my own internal translation, because fu is the character for man. It's like the work of man is kind of I think of it like the work of developing myself to my peak humanity, so to speak. Like and so when I look at like fighting, yeah, tournaments and competitions are okay, but if I'm always trying to fight and I'm always thinking about fighting and always out there being aggressive, how can I be the best me? If that's how I deal with things, and what I'm always the kind of the mode that I'm engaged in, you know what I mean? Is this always this challenging and now, yeah, it's something I always wanted to bring up too, maybe throw you guys too, is like domestic violence and just violence in general in the United States, how I feel like we aren't really given a lot of options for or a lot of information about how to deal with frustration and anger and intense situations, as men in this country. Is that, I don't know, something you want to talk about at all, or
Listen, I agree 1,000%, and I'm just going to kind of combine these two topics and say
yeah.
that, the first time you're placed under a level of pressure that you never experienced before, you're going to crack. Everybody does.
Yeah.
So one of the signature benefits of martial arts that you won't necessarily get from just yoga or CrossFit or any other worthy discipline is the ability to perform under pressure and stay calm and remember who you are and what you want, and not just whatever this person wants, I just want the opposite now because I'm into that mode of thinking. So we have to, the more dangerous the situation, the more important it is that we don't allow ourselves to go to that mode of thinking. And that's something that you get from martial arts. And it's something that you get to a greater degree in competition, maybe even sometimes to a greater degree in competition than actual street violence.
Yeah. Just because you got more time to be there and it's less traumatic in most cases, I'd say. You know, I mean, because like street violence, like unplanned violence. I mean, that's I think the first time I experienced violence outside of like schoolyard fights. We were at my grandmother's house and we heard a commotion at the door, and one of my mother's friends from high school who still lived in the neighborhood, was at the door with her face just completely bloody and just all over the place. And somebody had stopped her in the street, asked for directions, pulled her into by the shirt into his pickup truck and just beat her bloody and just threw her down. I don't know what that's really related, relevant to anything. It's just a matter of like I'm still trying to learn how to process the violent world that we live in. But
I think, I mean, Tai Chi, again, I'm kind of looking at it from the outside because I'm not totally familiar with it. Any kind of mental discipline is going to help you be a more calm and controlled person. So you can handle pressure better. You can control your feelings better because you're not going to respond in an instinctive way where somebody comes at you, you're just going to fight back. I mean, I'm lucky that I grew up in a very sedate environment, never got into any fights in school or anything like that. I've never been involved in a fight anywhere I've been, probably because I would be the one that'd be hiding against the wall or running away. But it is something that I see people having problems with control, and being able to kind of stop, think, and then react in a better way is something that everybody should try and do. And Tai Chi, to me, is one method that gives you the skills and the mentality to do that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Just kind of playing off the example that Jason gave, you don't want the first person who grabs your shirt and pulls you to be a person who actually means to do you harm. You would like to be in a situation where you're just standing here with a smile on your face because you've done this 1,000 times and you know exactly what to do. And I know what you're going to do next and I can handle that too.
Yeah.
So, how do you want this to go?
Yeah.
At least I won't make it worse. But if you want it to go bad, it will go bad for you.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah, and that's when you talk about the unique benefits of Tai Chi. I think that I've never really done any other formal martial arts. Like I've done a little bit of boxing, backyard boxing, and some like SCA type stuff from a guy who did praying mantis, right? But that the training techniques, the meditation, the qigong, and actually even the form itself, that it directly impacts the parasympathetic nervous system. And it stimulates that to help, reduce the sympathetic nervous system. I think I got that right, right? The parasympathetic is the calm down, and the sympathetic is the fight or flight. Whichever one. It activates the one that settles you down and kind of counteracts the fight or flight response. And so it kind of keeps you at that more calm space where you can make that decision. And that's actually something that my first teacher, Ray, had said about Wayland Choi, is that, that the calmer he got, the more you need to worry. Basically.
Good. Yeah.
And there was a story he told about somebody who came into the like Dan Inosanto, actually. Dan Inosanto had brought somebody in with him to meet him. And he was this big, like tough, like kind of kung fu's crap, dude. And he's like, yeah, I want to fight him, see what he's got. And Wayland Choi was like, he fought in like Southeast Asia martial arts tournaments and like, clean house and whatnot. And but he was a big dude, real aggressive, and he's getting a little older, I guess. And so what he told me was that, he got his like his san T position, and the guy came in to charge him. He just jammed his index finger up the guy's nose, just like legs. Just like, ah! They just took the fight right out of him and dropped him. But the whole just the thinking, like that one little spot. But yeah, like there was something you were saying. Like I was thinking about football, right? British UK football. And how I found out like during championships, the rate of domestic violence like skyrockets, like during finals matches, whether they win or lose, like the local team, like, and it's just like people, and not to pick on the UK soccer folks or anything, but that was the statistics that I saw that they just get overcome with this emotion and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to put it. And
I think that no, that is unfortunately a common thing that happens. And yeah, we do take our football very seriously, especially if you're a big fan of a particular team and they're not doing well or something happens, could be a foul that looks really nasty. And yeah, the aggression rises in the fans. And if they're at home watching it on TV, I would imagine that, yeah, they could easily take it out on their partners, uh,
Yep.
probably without thinking about it. So yeah, it's something that I think generally people do not learn how to control their feelings. I'm lucky. I'm an asthmatic, and when I was 5, I was diagnosed, and one of the first things that they got me to do to control my breathing was teach me yoga. So
Hmm.
I was learning how to calm myself down. So if I was having an attack, the first response in my head was, take it easy, just breathe, just breathe. And everybody should have some kind of mechanism like that to help them. When people don't have anything, they've never been taught anything, they've never sought anything out to learn to control themselves, they're at the mercy of lots of chemicals shushing around their bodies, making them do things that they wouldn't normally consider doing. But it is, yeah, it's unfortunate that aggression is one of the things that men have in their makeup. It's built into us. So being able to control it and kind of understand it a little bit better is always going to be a good thing.
Hey, what would you say about like Chris? Because like that was I think you, Jeff, didn't mean to just you just got me thinking about something else there. So that's
Yeah.
stimulating. The like I'd mentioned before, the Bene Gesserit and the Prana Bindu training of their, I don't know if you're a Dune fan or all at all, but their whole method of training being based on that sort of like saturating awareness into the body and establishing nerve system control and whatnot like that. Does your practice, your meditative practice, involve any sort of like internal work of that nature where you're sort of working on awareness and whatnot?
Yes.
You want to talk about it?
Well, I'm just thinking about how to come at that. You know, people can train in Tai Chi and really make meaningful improvements over the course of years and decades. And that's not all about, where you put your finger and where you put your leg, of course. Now, we can't go past that. We can't say that that doesn't matter because it does. But, in order to keep getting benefits over time, you need to reconfigure your perception of yourself. And more broadly speaking, what is a human being? And of course, that will include nervous system perceptions, right? What do you think?
Oh, you're asking me what I think?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. That's, I don't want to talk too much about like how necessarily I got there, but like knowledge of the body itself and spending time getting to know your body. I use the example of like your hand. Like for me, how do you tell somebody how well you know the back of your hand, right? There's no there's no real word for that. But for me, like trying to know my whole body that way, is the idea. Like I was saying that my I couldn't bend past my knees. When I was in high school, I used to basically dislocate my ankles all the time because I had a hard time understanding where my feet were pointed. And so I would play basketball or volleyball or something like that. I'd jump up and I'd land on somebody's foot and roll my ankle, and just, it was all the time. I mean, I could, you know, so the way that the way I usually like the elevator pitch for it is that with the study of Tai Chi, it cultivates a greater awareness and control of my body, mind, and, for lack of a better word, spirit, right? That across those three dimensions, which are kind of like, I kind of consider those the three bodies, right? Physical body and two kinds of energetic bodies. But across all three of those bodies, it just a better awareness of that, and then a better control over what I can do with that part of myself is, and whatever that means, you know. I'm not sure, because that's one of the things on this, like you were saying earlier about go that little bit further, and there's this mural at the Yang family home of like all the practitioners, and it's like got the levels of Tai Chi that goes up to like 13 or something like that, right? And Yang Lu Chan, the guy who is the you know, exalted founder of the Yang family system, is like level 9, you know, and he's not even at the top. And everybody else that we think is just so great, they're like down there, like, oh well, Chen Manching, well, he's kind of a 2. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was just this idea. There's always something. There's always more refinement you can do on yourself. You can always make yourself better. You know.
Well,
I
of
guess there's
course.
only.
I mean, how
Yeah.
long is a string? Well,
How
how
long
much
is the
time
string?
do you have? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How dark is blue? Yeah. But yeah, that's the conditioning. I think is really interesting. I found too, like that it's got some similarities with the kinetic chain theories. Like not exactly, you know, because I feel like they're talking more about, you know, hip bones connected to leg bone type stuff, where each one's kind of working independently, you know, next to each other. And I feel like we kind of look at it a different way, where like the threading the 9 bins pearls, what I call it, or what it's, yeah, that's similar but not quite the same. You know what I mean? So I think it kind of, and that's some, yeah, thoughts on that? Yeah.
You know, here we are.
Yeah.
We've got Yang Chung Fu's book right here. What's it called in Chinese? Taijiquan Tu Yong Fa, something like that.
Yeah.
So this is a reference to a type of cognitive model. T Yong, are you familiar with this?
No.
All right. Well, it's basically just a way of relating two pieces, and you say that one is like the trunk and the other is like the branch. So there's always going to
Okay, yeah, okay.
a complementary relationship that is not equality. And so we spend a lot of time in my classes for advanced students finding ways to apply this to their physical practice.
Okay.
And I'm sure it does have much in common with anatomy trains and that sort of thing. I only skimmed that book, but other people quite frequently bring it up and say, oh yeah, you're saying the same thing as this other guy said.
Yeah. It's something I noticed that, you know, again, they're looking at it like, okay, as I'm pushing, you know, how is this part moving? But, you know, we'll encounter the same sort of thing like in our stationary exercises. And I guess there are some stationary ones too, they do. And then some that involve moving, but it seems very similar to like the guiding of the chi, the circulation of chi that the Wu family talks about is basically the same thing as kinetic chain exercises, you know. And so it's very interesting. What do you think about chi, Jeff? Have you ever heard of that stuff?
Chi, yeah.
Yeah.
I drink it all the time. No, no. My daughter-in-law is from Taiwan, so I actually know quite a bit about Far Eastern philosophy and practice and studies and so on. In that respect of chi being the essence of what you are, and I actually love Chinese food, or in fact, most Asian food, even the weird things, because the weird things are not necessarily there to taste good, which we would have in the West. They're there to enhance your chi. So it's about your kind of physical being, your spiritual being, all of that kind of stuff. So I am familiar with it in that respect. but I've never really studied it, to be honest.
That's interesting. Yes, spirituals come up a couple times. How would you say spirituality intersects with this, Chris?
Well, there are various models of personal cultivation which have been developed by Confucians and Buddhists and Taoists, and of course, many people who aren't Asian as well. And, it can be interesting to compare those models to one's own practice. There are a couple topics in Tai Chi that, frankly, too much has been said about too soon. I'm going to put Qi and Shen in that category.
Yeah.
And maybe I will just stop talking for a minute right there before I get myself into too much trouble.
No, I mean, when I use the term spirituality, I'm not talking about it in the typical sense of kind of believing in a god or a kind of religious belief. For me, spirituality is about understanding one's presence in the world. It's about how you relate to other people and to other things. It's about how you compose yourself and how you project yourself to the rest of the world. So for me, spirituality is about my mental state and my interaction with everything around me. So I'm an agnostic. I don't believe in a God. Maybe there is one, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I'm not interested in that. I just want to be a good person. I want to be a kind person. I want to be a caring person. And I want to be a person that people like being around. That, for me, is my spirituality.
I gotta stop doing those little
About
expressions.
that.
Yeah, that's good. That definitely, yeah. Well, that reminds me between like my own understanding of Shen, right? It's always, nobody ever wants to talk about Shen. It's like, oh, right. But that it's kind of like that. Well, you've got like the three jewels of Taoism, which is like your Jing or your sexual essence that you refine into your Qi that you refine, or a kind of Qi, I guess. And then the Qi is refined into Shen, which is spirit, right? And so, or that's like a spirit energy. But what I understand about that is that spirit in the sense of like, in a couple senses, like, your fighting spirit or your the drive you've got to do something like that, kind of that energy. And then like you were saying, that connection to the world around you. Like they say, like it comes through the eyes, like kind of like the eyes, the gateways of the soul, but Shen's projected through the eyes. And so the way that you carry yourself and the way other people interact with you is a product of your Shen and whatnot,
I went on holiday with my sister, as I told you earlier. And she was quite surprised because I was always the quiet one in the family. My brother was the more vocal person. He was the more confident because he was the oldest one. She was okay because she was the youngest one and never had any pressure on her. I was always the one that kind of stood back from things. And even last year when we went on holiday, I wasn't speaking to that many people. This time I was deliberately going out, talking to people. She said, "Where did you get the confidence to do that?" And I said, "It's not confidence, it's a desire to do something."
Yeah.
And I'd realized that my holiday this time, I had a goal of, as I said, traveling on various forms of transport and so on. But it helped me overcome some of my personal fears just because I knew I needed to talk to people to find out their interest in travel and their opinions on travel. Having that confidence in yourself is actually a hard thing to achieve. So having some form of discipline that you follow, which will enhance that, I think is definitely going to be beneficial.
I mean, life is growth. If you're shrinking, you won't be around for long.
Yeah. And that sort
Right.
of fire, I suppose, of interaction that you're talking about there, Jeff,
Yeah.
saying hi to people. I've commented on that recently too, that just people are so isolated and drawn in and afraid of each other in many cases.
Yeah.
You know?
And I was actually surprised that the moment you connect with somebody, if you do it in a kind and easygoing way, they will open up to you as well. So
Hmm.
having that awareness of yourself and being open and honest and showing yourself to other people, they'll respond to you in a much more positive way than if you ask in a curt manner, or you're not kind of doing things in the right way. It was an eye opener for me, because I'm 70, and for 69 years I'd been living my life going, oh, I'm not good enough to talk to people. Suddenly I find I can talk to people, and I've got now, that as a result of that, a lot more confidence in my own ability. So it's a big step forward. Any kind of learning that you can do that progresses you to that next level, it's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And maybe just for a moment, we jump behind the scenes to the conversation we were having this morning, where I was saying I need to be careful what I say in public, and Jason responded and said, "Just be yourself." I said, "Absolutely not.
Boom.
That's the one thing I can't do." And as a teacher, a large part of my job is convincing people not to be themselves, because you need to be someone else to get someplace you have never been. And that's why we're in a class, right? Because you
Yeah.
want to be someone slightly different than you are today.
Yeah, that's actually interesting there too, because like when you said that, I was reminded of my they call it RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. It's like a comorbid condition with ADD, where like you just have these extremely severe reactions to thoughts of being um, rejected in some way, which I suffer from it horribly. So that's why I'm always so trying to make people laugh and be nice. It's like a compulsion. You still like me, don't you? You still like me? It's horrible. But it reminded me of that, and like a component of that is like there's this feeling that once you let somebody know everything once you let them see all of you, that they're going to see that and be like, oh, gee, this isn't what I thought it was, and throw you out and reject you. But that's just kind of that's probably not what you meant there, because you're talking more about a professional side, but
Well, I mean, it is related. And, anybody who interacts with the public needs to maintain some level of a public face. When you say that you're being authentic, you're just creating a fake authenticity to put out into the world. There's a wonderful talk on this by a Taoist philosopher. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but you might enjoy the presentation. He talks about profilicity in modern social media, and compares it to Confucian ethics in a very interesting way.
hmm.
I, 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 I can see where you're coming from with that, and you should try being an actor.
Yeah.
Rejection is just part and parcel of the job, and I've read quite a few interesting things about rejection, where it's the rejection that spurs you on to be better at your next approach. So you've got to kind of turn it into a positive thing, which again comes back to that whole mental aspect. It's how you perceive things that's the important thing. And if you can do anything to change the way that you perceive things and turn it into a positive, that's a step forward.
Yeah, I'd say that like these studies, well, just in general, to like anything like mental or even physical with me, I find that once I get an accurate understanding of what it is, that I'm able to sort of take the power out of its impact on me, and like, becoming aware of that RSD, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like that's why I always feel like this, and so then I'm able to like, like you're saying, make a choice about it. And like, oh, okay, wait, this is just my disorder messing with me. It's not like me responding to the way the world really is, and be able to like kind of get clear on that.
Yeah.
It just comes with time. One thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't is like the role of teacher and student, because we look at especially in the Chinese stuff, there's this sort of, like I mentioned, Yang Lu Chan, like everybody after Yang Lu Chan is not as good as Yang Lu Chan. And like there's this kind of like unspoken, or sometimes it is spoken, that you can never be as good as your teacher. Which, if you follow that train of logic, it just means that every generation is worse until there's nothing there, right? So, one of the things I thought about was that, the greatest gymnast in the world is Simone Biles, but who's the greatest gymnastics coach, right? Who is that? Anyhow, so I just wanted to put that to you guys. Like, what do you, how do you guys feel about the role of teacher and student, or coach and athlete or all that?
People say things in martial arts that they don't actually believe. And one of the important things which unifies a community is a shared fantasy, right? Nobody can be as good as Yang Luchan. Look, I wasn't there. He may well have been great, and if I thought he was bad, I wouldn't be doing Tai Chi. But at the same time, I hear a lot of stories about things that happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we have video of those, and the stories don't match the video. All right, that's reality. So that can make us a little bit skeptical about what is reported to have happened in 1890, I think, if we are using our brains. Yeah, that's my initial thought.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was
Yeah.
kind of more like on the, like you'd mentioned earlier at the very beginning, Jeff, about like how you can meet somebody who's gonna, say something or teach you something or show you something that's going to change your world, or like that's something I had thought about, like especially with the spiritual studies and well, I mean, this as a spiritual study is like a study of self, being a study of spirit, the self cultivation that getting your head checked a little bit, getting your perception shattered can just be like a transformational experience. But I guess it was more about like what is the relationship, or responsibilities between like a student and a teacher. Like how do you feel, how responsible do you feel for your students?
Well,
Like,
when I was teaching, I felt very responsible for them because I wasn't teaching them, I was helping them understand that they were teaching themselves. And any good educator, regardless of what field they're in, is a facilitator. They're helping people understand what their potential is. It is then up to that person to take that understanding and push forward. And then they become a mentor, a source of information. And like our relationship, I helped you in the early days. You would have a question, I would answer it if I could. If I couldn't, I knew people that could give me an answer and I'd send that on to you. I disagree with the fact that the student can never be better than the teacher. I would hope that any student can always be better than the teacher if they carry on learning and building their knowledge and applying their knowledge. It's not safe to say that all teachers are the same. It's not safe to say that all students are the same. Everybody will have their own level of desire, commitment, and ability to grasp certain pieces of information at certain times in their life. And I know from a technology perspective, there were some things that I struggled with for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then suddenly the light bulb goes off. I talk to a couple of people, I find out that it's right, and I've made a step forward. It's going to be exactly the same in any discipline. You're going to hit walls. You're going to reach a situation where you think, that's it, I've gone as far as I can. But it's always worth trying to push yourself a little bit further. So you want the students to keep doing that so that they can be better than you.
yeah,
But
what do you think, Chris?
not too quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think, Chris? Like, and I guess like maybe adding that too, do you think that there's some teachers out there that are maybe hold back to keep their students from surpassing them?
I don't think that. I know that. But just to jump back one moment to the previous topic,
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that sometimes in martial arts, real skills are built off fake stories. It has happened many times, and it would be more convenient if that weren't the case, but it is the case. Just to give one example, the most obvious example in Chinese martial art is Shaolin Temple, which, as we know, was destroyed and rebuilt after they made a cool movie. And these days, people like to believe that because Shaolin was rebuilt due to a movie, therefore they must not have real skills. But I can tell you one of the most memorable moments of my time in Shaolin was somebody walking up to Shaolin with that attitude and getting knocked out in one punch. So don't take them for granted, or anybody else who is just trying to emulate, in some sense, a mythical figure. They may well succeed.
Yeah. That's actually, one thing I kind of got in a little bit of trouble with in the community was I had made a video about um, Chen Man Ching and Yang Lu Chan, that the book that you have in your hand there, and how at the beginning there's a story that's just an outright lie, that like he said that he had a conversation with Yang Lu Chan, who died 10 years before he was born. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, do you have a medium or something? Like, how does that how does that work? But people got really upset about me even like asking, well, why would he lie about this? Not even like necessarily in an attacking place, but it seemed like you're saying, we sort of, kind of rely on these fake stories in some ways to, I don't know, bolster our practice. I don't know.
Well, that does happen, and also impossible and incredible things do happen when we fully dedicate ourselves to some direction. So I actually am not going to come out and say that that story is a lie because the guy was dead. That doesn't mean you can't talk to him. I don't really want to get into
Sure.
details about that. There are many things that I don't talk about, but I guess I am willing to say that impossible things are possible.
Sure, that's a good. Yeah. So okay, well, it's about an hour. It's about a pretty good. Is there anything we need to talk about? Any burning desires here before we
Yeah, my only desire is to go to bed.
I'm sure, man. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. Is there anything you guys want to plug? What's going on? What's in your world here?
Jeff, you go first.
Well, the only thing I'm going to plug is that there will be a travel documentary, hopefully available from boredomboy.com towards the end of November, maybe early December.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed your Boredom Boy tracks, man. It's really I don't know, Boards of Canada at all, Chris? It's
I
kinda like
love,
that sort of
yeah, I
stuff.
love Boards of Canada.
Not familiar, no.
So it's really just interesting electronic, experimental type stuff. It's good. What you got there, Mr. Marshall?
Well, it's my goal to do one significant public event every quarter, at least, either in the Seattle area or elsewhere in North America. And so anybody who has any interest in Tai Chi, either at a beginner or advanced level, should join my newsletter. And then you'll at least hear about the event and you can decide whether you'd like to attend or not. So shorelinetaichi.com for that. And we've got 100 very interesting videos available on YouTube as well.
And they are very, very interesting. I can attest to that.
Oh, definitely. Like I film a lot more push hands than I watch even, really, but like I just like film it like I just can't even, like ours, like the one with me and you. I met with you, and I probably got 6 months before I even looked at it. I just couldn't. I was just like, I just don't even want to know, It just.
Well, look, I mean, editing video is nobody's idea of a fun time, I think.
No, well, I just
Correct.
didn't even want to look at it. I could just kind of like, I guess, had a mental block against seeing what actually transpired during that exchange for some reason. So I don't know. But it was good. It was a very, very kind to me. Not too much of a bully. That was great. And
Not too much.
yeah. But that's the November. The end of November, we're gonna have the Tampa Bay Martial Arts Group retreat. It's gonna be a blast. And in December, I'm going to be out in Austin. Alex is going to be having his yearly workshop out there. So going to Austin for a weekend. If anybody wants to meet Alex Dong and hang out, hey, come on down. It's a good time. That's all I got, really. I keep saying check the Patreon for my newsletter. It's free. It's just Patreon's better than Facebook. Facebook just like, they hate me. I made bad jokes 3 years ago, so they take away my advertising, and it's just crazy. But yeah, that's all I got, man. Well, thanks so much, guys, for participating and sharing your wisdom and thoughts on all these things. And yeah, it's these are the things I want people to know about, you know, how we think about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's been very interesting for me, and nice to meet you, Chris. Next time I'm in Seattle, I'll look you up.
Sounds great.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much, and check us out. Everybody at home.
Bye-bye.
Speak. Temper your desire, never forget the ancient wisdom. Real gold does not fear the fire. Champion. Soar shelf, gotta trust my glory. A body with no scars tells a boring story. Embrace the way, even tigers they will find no place for the claws to catch.